And here is a look at the list of Illinois lawmakers who say they are boycotting Trump's State of the Union address. Senator Tammy Duckworth tweeted she won't be going, calling it, quote, another campaign rally full of lies. Representatives Mike Quigley, Sean Casten, Delia Ramirez, Jan Schakowsky, and Eric Sorensen are also skipping the speech. At least a dozen Democrats, including Congresswoman Ramirez, will instead host a counterpart event called the People's State of the Union at the National Mall. Now, as I mentioned, Congressman Sean Casten is going to forego attending the speech tonight. He joins us live now via Zoom, of course, to talk about his decision to boycott. First off, thank you so much, Congressman, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so quite simply, why boycott the State of the Union speech as opposed to attending but maybe sitting quietly with no reaction or no applause? And will your boycott make any difference in any way?
Well, I don't know that I use the word boycott. I think it's a real challenge for those of us who have vastly more respect for the office of the president than the current occupant does. If we go and we sit silently to convey our respect for the office of the president, we become theater props that might be interpreted as respect for Donald Trump. If we go and we indicate, how we feel about the current occupant, it's disrespectful to the office. And, my general feeling, and I shared this with our caucus last year, is nobody goes to a play to hear the hecklers. And I don't think it's appropriate to go and heckle, but I think I will watch remotely. We'll certainly follow what's going on, but I'm just not interested in being a prop.
Former First Lady Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. And in that sense, respecting your differences of opinion, and certainly I understand what you're saying here, isn't not attending the speech, though, just furthering the congressional partisan divide that angers so many voters who, in particular, might be more centrist?
First of all, I played rugby in college. When they go low, you drop a knee. The President of the United States is a convicted felon. The President of the United States is all over the Epstein files and is an adjudicated rapist. The President of the United States could use this opportunity to show empathy for the victims of the Epstein files, could use this opportunity to show empathy for the families of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. He could use this opportunity to remind people of the dignity and the glory of the United States. And we know he's not going to do any of that. This is not a matter of trying to make things partisan. This is a matter of trying to show people that we as Americans are better than this.
How many fellow members of Congress do you think will not attend the speech tonight, by the way? I mean, we know it's roughly a dozen or more. What are you hearing?
I don't know. I know I don't have any reason to suspect that this will be different than it was a year ago, when I think there were probably 20 or 30 of us who didn't attend. And I don't, to be clear, I don't judge people who do or don't one way or the other. One of the things that's hard is that this is a real opportunity to elevate stories by the guests we bring. And that in of itself is impactful. Personally, for me, a number of years ago, I brought a gentleman whose parents escaped from Buchenwald, got him free. He ended up working on the Manhattan Project. He's now 102, and he was my guest to the first State of the Union I went to with Trump. And it was a nice opportunity to elevate his story, to remind people of the greatness of America. And when I walked out, I asked him how he thought it went, and he said, "I've heard that speech before." And so there's this tension, right, of like, you want to elevate these stories, but you also don't want to put people in positions where they feel triggered or emotionally or vulnerable in any other way.
Understood.
And so I think a lot of members will attend with that in mind as well, to try to elevate their guests.
Okay, Congressman Sean Casten, thank you so much for joining us to share your position on your decision not to attend the State of the Union tonight. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.